Please stand by for important information from the leader of the City of Boston, Mayor Martin J. Walsh.
Thank you very much. In Massachusetts, the latest COVID numbers, as of yesterday, 213 new confirmed cases, bringing the total to 114,611 confirmed cases. There were 4 deaths yesterday, bringing the Massachusetts death total to 8,611. Boston numbers, as of today, we got our numbers today, 24 new cases of COVID, a total case load in Boston, 14,940. We had no new deaths today in Boston, thank God, and our death total remains at 746. And our thoughts and prayers go out to the family members of the families that are struggling with COVID and who have lost loved ones as well. The uptick that we saw in the second half of July has leveled off, but we're watching the data very closely. We're expanding testing and continuing contact tracing. The positive test rate for the week ending August 10th was 2.6%. That's down from the previous week of 2.8%. Visits to Boston emergency rooms for the COVID-like illnesses are down somewhat and stable over time. ICU usage in Boston at Boston hospitals are down to 74% from 82%. But our daily average positive tests stayed up around 40 cases. Some of that was increased due to more testing, which I'll explain in a moment. We continue to increase both the numbers of tests and access to tests across the city. We have maintained over 20 active testing sites. For the last full week of analyzed data, we had over 1,600 daily tests, up from 8.6 compared to the previous week. So we are doing lots more testing here in the city. Testing is up in every single neighborhood except for Alston and Brighton, which we had a pop-up site this week, and we're working on getting those numbers. Our mobile testing teams have played a role in increasing both the capacity and the access to testing in our neighborhoods. We're offering testing to anyone who wants it at no cost, and regardless if you are symptomatic or not. At Moakley Park in South Boston over the last 2 weeks, the team performed more than 3,000 tests in Moakley Park. Starting this Thursday, August 20th, that team will be moved over to Jubilee Christian Church in Mattapan. The site will have walk-through testing and parking for those arriving by car. The Mattapan pop-up will run this week from the 20th of August through Saturday, August 22nd, and next week from Tuesday, August 25th through Saturday, August 29th. You can find more information about this and including hours for testing anywhere in the city. Go to Boston.gov/coronavirus. We're going to be bringing testing wherever it's needed, and I encourage everyone to get tested regularly. Knowledge is power in this situation for individuals and for our community. Each of us has a role to play as we continue to move forward. We need to stay focused and vigilant on the battle of COVID-19. Every resident, business, and college student, we're asking people to stay informed and follow the guidelines that have been laid out. Continue washing your hands with soap and warm water. Avoid large gatherings. Keep at least 6 feet from other people when you're walking down the street, or if you're jogging, or if you're running, or if you're hanging on the beach. We're asking people to wear masks. Keep your masks on. Just like when you're going to a restaurant, you keep your mask on until you sit at a table. If you're walking down the street and you want to have your mask in your hand, or pull it down while you're walking, if you see other people, we're asking you to pull it back up. Face covering is hard for some to get used to, but I want people to think of it, it's like putting a seatbelt on. Years ago, when there was a big push for seatbelts, no one wanted to put it on. People said it felt restrictive. Now it's the norm. No one even thinks about wearing a seatbelt anymore. It automatically goes on. No one expects to be in an accident, but you don't feel safe until you buckle up. And that's common sense. We're asking the same thing with masks. When you have a mask on, you're safe. You're protecting yourself and you're protecting others from coronavirus. Boston has done well over the last, quite honestly, almost 3 months because our residents are resilient and responsible, and I want to thank you for that. We understand the power of making simple sacrifices for our families and our communities, and we also have looked out and taken care of each other, and that's what we have to keep on doing. Working together to keep these numbers down is how we support a safe, equitable recovery of our businesses, of our schools, of our own families, quite honestly. Boston Public Schools, on Friday, we submitted plans that meet all the state public health guidelines. The latest draft of that plan is available online to the public, and I encourage anyone who is curious about schools and reopening to take a look at the plan. It answers many of the questions that are being raised. We also asked the state to let us push back our first day of school from September 10th to September 21st for most students, and September 23rd for pre-kindergarten students. That gives teachers, administrators more time to plan and gives us more time and information to monitor the data that I talked about a little earlier. Very soon we'll be making decisions on whether to open all remote learning or a hybrid model. But I want to be clear, every family has the choice to begin the year remotely, even if we have a hybrid model on the table. Our priorities are safety, quality, and equity. Safety, we will be guided by the science and the data, just like we've been throughout the pandemic. Some people have said, what does that mean? That means that we're looking at the daily positives in Boston, and we're looking at the weekly positive test results. So 2 weeks ago, we had a 2.8% positive rate for people taking tests of COVID-19. Last week, we had 2.6%. We saw a dip. In the last, if you look at the last 10-week period, we've averaged, I believe, 2.2% roughly of positive cases, the highest being, I think, 2.9, and the lowest being 1.9. So we're working to make sure that our testing stays in that area. We will not bring students or staff into a building that is not safe. We are working every day to make sure those buildings are safe and in line with every single public health guidance. And quite honestly, we're looking to go above and beyond that. We've inspected 27,500 windows in our school, and we're repairing right now 7,300 windows. We're going to have making sure that there's a window in every classroom that doesn't open, that they'll be able to open, but we're replacing or rebuilding 7,300 windows throughout the district. We've inspected 35 HVAC systems, and we purchased 3,000 fans. Our COVID protocol meets the state requirements, and the Boston Public Health Commission's guidance, an agency that has set high standards for COVID safety and containing the virus already. Equity. We are putting the needs of the most vulnerable students at the center of all of our plans. Students experiencing poverty, hunger, and homelessness, students learning English, students with disabilities, students suffering from the impact of systemic racism, which leads to significant opportunity and achievement gaps that we've witnessed in our district for decades. Quality. The superintendent, school leaders, and teachers have been working hard and working together to make all the learning options high quality. Community input has shaped every step of the planning that we're doing. BPS has held 30 virtual meetings with over 2,000 participants in them. They've done surveys and held conversations, taken feedback, and answered questions. The latest draft, Boston Public Schools has worked with the BTU in a task force made up of teachers, school leaders, and central office leaders. They are working together on key issues, connecting with families using home visits and technology, making up for lost time in school, addressing social and emotional struggles, making sure the school day is age appropriate for all students. We're going to continue to work together. We're going to continue to coordinate with child care and after school programs. As the superintendent says, this is an all hands on deck moment. and we're going to continue to listen to the feedback and keep you updated every step of the way. And it is important that we continue to work collectively together. Again, no final decision has been made on what school will look like on the first day, but we're working towards getting those answers as we move forward the next couple of days here. We also have a state primary election on September 1st and the general election on November 3rd here in the Commonwealth. The registration deadline for the primary is August 22nd, which is this Saturday. So if you want to vote in the September 1st election, you need to register to vote by August 22nd. You can learn about your voting status if you go to Boston.gov/elections. This year, we're certainly facing challenges to the election process like we've never ever seen before. A pandemic and also attacks from the White House. We are committing to making sure Bostonians can vote safely. We have in-person voting for all elections with safety protocol and PPE. We've moved some polling locations out of our senior buildings for resident safety. So I think we've moved over 20 locations around the city. You will have received a letter in the mail if your polling location has been changed. If you didn't receive a letter, your polling location has not been changed. We're notifying registered voters if they've been impacted by these polling location changes, and we've also done the best we can to make sure that those location changes are very close to your current location, polling location. We're holding early voting again this year, and it begins this coming weekend. For primary, early voting is August 22nd to August 28th at a total of 18 locations across the city, including right here at City Hall. The general election early vote will begin on October 17th and go through October 30th. So for right now, it's this Saturday, August 22nd to the 28th, if you'd like to early vote. For any information or you want to find out about voting, including early vote locations, we're asking you to visit Boston.gov/elections, or you can call 311 and we'll connect you to the election department. We've also worked to making vote by mail widely and easily available to all. In July, the state sent applications for mail-in ballots to every single registered voter in Boston. Our election department has received over 75,000 requests for ballots. We've sent out over 60,000 of those ballots to registered voters, to people who've requested it, and we continue to process those requests. I urge everyone who wants one and has not done so yet to send your application in right away. For the primary, for mail-in ballots, it must be received by Wednesday, August 26th, if you want to get your ballot mailed to you. We will process every request received by that date. If you want to track your ballot, you can go to the website trackmyballotmass.com. That's trackmyballotma.com. That's trackmyballotma.com. You can literally track your ballot to see where it is. Today, I'm also going to announce another voting access point. We have placed a ballot box in the lobby of City Hall right behind me. Actually, you can't see it, but I think it's covered up there, but right inside City Hall. It's available Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. No appointment is needed. However, you will be screened for COVID symptoms upon entering the building. And that's folks that have an absentee ballot or a mail-in ballot that you don't want to put in the mail and you want to drop it off here. You can drop it off right here at City Hall. You can drop it off also by August 26th. You can drop off your applications for asking for a mail-in ballot. So you can drop them all off here at City Hall as well. We request that you turn your completed ballot in as soon as possible. And I just want to remind everyone, when you do the absentee ballot and you get the vote and you're voting, on the outside of the envelope there's a place you have to sign your name. You'll see it. Make sure you sign your name so that the ballot is validated. We also have another concern that we're dealing with this election season. The President has threatened to undermine the operations of the U.S. Postal Service to disrupt mail-in voting. We need a strong postal service. We have a strong postal service. The men and women who deliver our mail every single day are out there regardless of the conditions. Many of our seniors and others receive their medications by mail along with their checks and other essential items. To threaten this on the eve of the election during a pandemic is a dangerous attack on the fundamental institution and values. We've been in contact with the Secretary of State's office. I spoke personally to the Attorney General this morning and other members of Congress about this. Congressman Lynch and Congresswoman Presley are on the Oversight and Reform Committee, They acted quickly to launch hearings. I want to thank our congressional delegation for a swift response. This afternoon, we got word from the Postmaster General is suspending the operational changes that were causing this great concern. So we're going to continue to push to make sure that we don't see any disruption in our mail as we go through this election season. We're going to continue to monitor the situation closely on a daily basis. As a local government, we're doing all we can to make voting safe and accessible. We call on the federal government to protect and support the Postal Service at this critical time. Postal workers, as I mentioned, have been the lifeline to many residents in this crisis, and now they're helping us to protect our democracy. I want to thank all of the postal workers who are working for us. And also, elections are the cornerstone of our democracy, and access to voting is a fundamental right. Today marks the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution. It made women's right to vote the law of the land. Boston women led that movement, including black women who had to keep fighting for decades to make that right for them a reality. We take voting rights and voting access seriously here in Boston. We have fought for it and will continue to fight for it every day. I can assure you that we will do everything within our power to make sure that everyone's vote is counted. With that, I'd like to thank people for being here, and I open up for questions from the press. If there's any questions. Just one.
Does the tomorrow the council is thinking about rejecting several nominees? Should they?
Yeah, the question on the from Sean Carter from Boston Herald is the City Council has in front of them tomorrow 3 or 4 names of recommendations for the Zoning Board of Appeal that there's threat that's going to be they're not going to be voted on. First and foremost, they need to be voted on. The council has had these names for several months now, actually for maybe longer than that. This is for a couple councils is about politics right now. This isn't about moving our process forward. These actions or inaction by a couple of councilors will cause a lot of harm in our city. We have hundreds and hundreds of applications in front of the Zoning Board of Appeal, people's homes, people's livelihood, their investments, that we need to move forward. If we don't get these voted on and these commissioners vote on, we won't have the ability to have a quorum, and literally could stop development in the city in its tracks. Most of these projects that are going in front of the Zoning Board of Appeal have been vetted through. I'll just give you 1 second. Have been vetted through a community process. These are diverse candidates, and it's something that is important. That we've never had this issue before in my 7 years as mayor, where we've held the council's held up any appointments by the mayor's office. Also, in good faith, I work with the city council to work on changing definitions of zoning members moving forward. We need a legislative change to make sure that this happens, and I work with them in good faith, and I signed their ordinance into law, not into law, but I signed their ordinance. We sent it up to the State House, and we're working together. Again, this is another issue where we need to work collectively together to advance the city moving forward. I have one question that came in. Sorry, I didn't read it. It came in pre the press conference. I just want to read it. New BPS data shows that nearly 30% BPD, data shows that nearly 30% increase in shootings over 2019. What's the city doing to curb gun violence, and can you attribute this increase to any particular cause? I just want to start by making it clear that violence of any kind is unacceptable in our communities. I want our residents to know that we're focused on resources in the most highly impacted communities in the city of Boston. This pandemic has certainly created a scenario where many youth and young adults lack opportunities that they otherwise would depend upon. We are working with all of our violence prevention partners to prevent more incidents from happening before they happen. We're providing one-on-one case management to those most susceptible to gang activity. And our Office of Public Safety, in partnership with SOAR, Boston Street Workers, the Boston Police Department, our trauma teams, and Boston Public Schools have been working around the clock to provide resources to communities traumatized by violence. So we're going to continue to work on this issue as we move forward. And thank you for that.